know already, March 19th, we're going to do our second seed swap. It'll be after hours, it'll be 2 o'clock, it'll be up here, and people will come in the side doors. Unless you're members of the group, you want to come a little early and help set up all the seeds on the table. And we got donations. I got donations so far from Johnny's, which apparently doesn't give out donations very regularly. And I had to send all kinds of proof that there was a group. And so they were very nice, sent us a big box, and Ferry Morse sent us a big box.
Some special pumpkin seeds.
Oh, not yet. We're hoping for some.
Boy.
Okay, Wendy Thomas, who I've had to reschedule twice, is going to be here April 6th. She's the Lessons from the Flock, the Backyard Chicken speaker. And that's all I have to talk about right now. And we're very happy to have Bambi here. Bambi, as you know, is the district manager of the Stratford County Conservation District, and she's in charge of the big plant sale.
Oh, very well. The big thing you need to know about the plant sale is, because every year we have the funny situation, well, it's not funny for them, but funny where somebody brings a big truck and trailer because they ordered 50 Christmas trees. And 50 Christmas trees you can carry in your, put in your trunk of the car if they don't have the dirt with them. So you don't have to transport the dirt. They're bare roots. So 50 Christmas trees will sit here. It's just you don't need a trailer. But we always have somebody who turns up who didn't read or didn't think about the reality of that you don't have all that dirt to move with it. So that's good and bad. The thing about bare root is that you need to plan where you're going to put them. You can't just sit there and say, okay, now I've got these plants and think about it a while. They need to go in the ground. And bare root, perfectly good as far as planting it and things. It's just that you have to know where it goes and you have to plant it. Now, the opportunity with bare root also is that you can prune the roots at that time. And usually you don't think about that the roots can be pruned. You're better off when you plant it. Don't take the hairs, like the old guys wrap them around. It doesn't work well with roots because actually what you're doing is you're doing this around its neck. So you're killing the plant if you do wrap the roots around. So you always make a $5 hole for a $1 plant, and you spread those roots out. So if you're not going to spread them out, then you need to prune them to make sure that they go into the hole properly. And it won't kill the plant to prune them. In fact, if you look in the order form here, and did everybody get a copy of this? You will notice that I'll have something that says 2-2 under some of the evergreens. And 2-2 means that it was 2 years in one bed, yanked out of the ground, pruned, put back into the ground. And when they prune that, it actually makes new, smaller hairs, and it makes a more stronger plant for handling for you. So it makes a more substantial plant when they actually prune those, put them back in the ground, grow them a couple more years. So they're a more substantial, healthier, going to be a fuller plant than a 4-year-old that's growing in the same hole. So if I have something that shows 2-2, it means that's what's happened to it. More work, more labor. And but I think you end up with a better tree with those, especially your Christmas trees and things. That's where you're going to find those 2-2s and things like that. So that's what that means.
I'm sorry, you said they grow for 2 years and you pull it out? And
they pull them out of the ground and they prune it and then they plant it back in the ground, okay. And then they grow it for 2 more years. And then they pull them out of the ground, and that's when you get it. So it says 2-2. That means it's a 4-year plant. So. And with the Christmas trees, usually you figure a 10-year-old tree is a good tree for you to cut and bring into your house. So you really got a substantial thing going there. And the first year with a bare root, you're not going to see a lot of growth. What you're seeing is a lot of underground growth. That's what you want. And the second year, then you'll see more growth up above. Now, some of these trees, like the fruit trees, are 4-6 feet tall, and they'll have blooms on them. And it's fun that you see people, because they come in, and the pruners of that, we've had a lot of times somebody come in, a professional person who helps people prune them before they leave. but the amount that they cut off horrifies people that they take home because of the way it is. But when you go home with a tree and it has blooms on it, you really should pick them off the first year because you want the energy to go into the roots. You don't want it to be throwing out those young and spending their time growing fruit on it. You want them to put the energy into the tree. But what percentage of people actually do that and sit there, oh, I haven't peach this year? It's very tempting. So you just have to make your choices yourself as to what you're going to do when you leave. But you do have to plan on where you're going to plant them. If you're going to have soil tests done on your soils ahead of time, you need to do that so that you know what you need to add so when you get home. And that's why we have pickup both the Friday and the Saturday. That way, if you pick it up Friday, you've got the whole weekend to work on planting. And realistically, that's the best time to get it in. Now, you can torture those plants, and I've done that with some of the leftovers. I've seen how far I can torture, so over the years I've learned, which plants can handle a little bit, but you pay for it if you don't get them in. That they don't grow as well that year. They may survive, but they're really struggling when somebody waits 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month to get those plants in the ground, so it really makes a difference. But bare root is a pretty standard way around the country to ship and transport trees. A lot of the nurseries get in bare root. They put them into pots, they grow them, and then they sell them out to the public. So they're used to dealing with it. So, but anyways, that's one thing you need to know with these plants. And one thing we get a lot of calls on them, people will call and say, okay, it says $7 for 5 here. Is that 5 you have to buy times the 7? No, it's $7 for 5 plants. So we just have to, we get a lot of calls if you don't realize that is the price. So we have very good prices. This is a fundraiser for the district. It helps us with our funding, but it also is that I buy in quantity. I buy in hundreds and thousands of these plants. I have about 100,000 plants go through me every year. So I'm done with babysitting plants by the time the sale is over. So, but it really is kind of neat because I've been doing this for 20 years and I have all these people come back to me and tell me about their wonderful plants. So I'm out at their place and big trees there and I'm going, oh yeah, that's what I got at the plant sale back in, they know which year it was. So one of the other things we've done this year is I've tried to put the information for past plants because we get a lot of calls. What was it that this plant was? So I put onto our website, which is new for us this year, past information about past plants we've sold, so people can go back there and check on those plants. The other thing, the philosophy behind the plant sale is that we wanted to have things on there that you couldn't normally get at the nursery. Native species are a lot easier to take care of. They'll grow here. Nature has proven that. And so you have them here. They're going to, once you get them established, you're not going to have a problem with them. If you respect what it says, that this is going to grow to, 80 feet, but this is going to grow to 10 feet. If you're trying to keep something at 10 feet that thinks it wants to get to 80 feet, it's going to take a lot more management. You can do it. They've proven that with bonsai. But it's going to take you a lot more work. And that's if you're putting something in a place that it's not usually comfortable with. The other thing we try to do with our plant sale is provide things that are good for wildlife, as well as native species and good replacements for, if you've noticed, the invasive species. There's a lot of them that they put on the list. Burning bush is beautiful in the fall. It has a bright red, and a lot of people have them. Now legally, as long as you leave it there, you don't have to remove it. But all those little babies that it's making, it's spreading the invasive species around. So, but each landowner has to make that decision themselves at this time what they're going to do. Whether they're going to leave it there, keep it. And but we did put on here a blueberry bush that has bright red leaves for people to. It's a good replacement for the burning bush. So you not only will now have the bright red leaves, but you also will have food. I think that's a pretty good. Not everybody wants the food in your yard, but then birds will probably like it too, so you have to have a discussion with them who gets them. Let's see what else is there. So you've got all those. We also have the Wild Turkey Federation packet back. Again, that is where the Wild Turkey Federation helps pay for these plants. Now, these plants are good for most wildlife, but since the Wild Turkey Federation helps pay for it, call it the Wild Turkey Package. And it costs you $50 less to get those plants. And the turkeys benefit from them, but also the other wildlife. And these are particular plants that hold their fruit on, so that in the winter, especially like now, when you have deep snow and they can't get down to their food, there's fruit up there that they can sustain themselves. So this is a particular kind of weather that's ideal that those plants be out there. So that's another thing. But you have to be in New Hampshire, obviously. Farmington is, to qualify to purchase that packet. And you have to say on the form that, yes, I've seen wild turkeys in the area, and yes, I will plant them all together in one area. So they don't want you to divide them up between 20 people in town, because you need a mass of food in one area for wild turkeys and wildlife to sustain them. So that's what they ask for their donation to help out. We have a lot of fruits on the order form, and we've gone into. We have the gooseberries and we have the currants on there. Now these are currants and blueberries that are resistant to the blister rust that affects the white pine, and the state has certified we only purchase ones from that list. But you do have to fill out the paperwork and send it into the state to say, I have them and this is where I'm planting them. John's done that, right?
Yep. After a 4-year gap.
After a 4-year gap. Well, they weren't producing much before then, huh? But, so they are on the order form, and the reason you don't see those in this part of the country is as many years ago, what was it, about the 50s, they worked very hard at having the Conservation Corps rip them out of the ground and remove them everywhere to try and get rid of that secondary host to protect the white pine, because white pine was a forestry tree. It was a timber tree that they used for commodity.
Yeah, we were at an extension service thing last year, and one of the speakers, he said there was a lot of misdiagnosis.
Right.
It was just a panic.
It was a panic thing, from what I understand, and they spent a lot of money doing it, and there's only certain ones, once they've been proven that they're not a carrier from it, then they're put onto this list. So the list has grown a little bit over the last couple of years, but there's a lot of people that really have an interest in it. But they were native in this area. They were all around the area. So, and there could be. So
it
that's
was Bill Lord, wasn't it? That said that.
Excuse me?
I think it was Bill Lord that said that.
Yeah. So but there's people out there that still panic when they hear it, because they were told that this was going to do it. And I have confidence that the state wouldn't have allowed them to come back in if they still truly believe that. Some of the other things we got into, we worked with some of the different, if you look in their recommendations from different farmers have made recommendations as far as different plants. We have tribute before. As far as the strawberry, we're trying a different one, Seascape, which was recommended from the Warren Farm. If any of you have been there to pick strawberries and things in the past, he recommended that would be a really good one for us to use. So that's why we went that way. The other thing that I brought along, so people wanted to look at them, was some of the books we have available, because plants live in the soil, and if you don't have soil that's suited for your plants, you really need to choose your plant for your site. If it says that you need a zone 6 for your plants, planting them here unless they're in a greenhouse or something is really not a good idea. In Stratford County, part of the county is in 4 and part of it is in 5 zone. So you have to decide, and with all the weather changes they're saying, and where in the hillside you are and all that, You have to decide which one, whether you can handle a 5 in your area or whether it's a 4 that you need the zone for.
Which is the coldest?
The coldest, you can handle colder if it's a 4. And there's some things with zones, and it has to do with some other type of science, that the zones go the opposite direction. I can't remember who it is, but the zones go the other way, so it gets colder the other way.
Australia.
No, it's in the United States. It's a science group, which I can't figure out why they do it the other way, but so you gotta be careful. But in this area, in Stratford County, we have a regime change partway up the county where the ground gets colder, and so that's why it's in 4 instead of the 5. Closer you are to the seacoast, the ocean actually modifies temperatures quite a bit, so it keeps it warmer. I've been up in Eastport, Maine and stuff, and there are certain things that grow there that you probably can't grow here in Farmington, which is kind of interesting. I've seen a lot of plants there that are amazing that they'll have planted out there, which is kind of funny. But the soil, so your best off testing your soils. If it says does not do well in heavy clay, don't plant. Don't try and do that, you know, unless you really want to be a mother hen to your plants. Pick plants that suit the soil, suits the water. If it says that it does well in wetland, if you look at my flyer, I've tried to put down information about whether it likes moist soil, whether it can handle very drouthy. Bayberry is one of those interesting ones you'll see down by the seacoast, but you also, it survives very well in very nutrient deficit locations, sand pit type locations, and that's why down by the ocean it does well, but also it doesn't compete well with other plants. So if you have a whole lot of things there in its way, they're going to over-compete the bayberry. If you keep the other plants away, they'll do very well in even the rich soils. But if you just let everything go wild, they're going to be out-competed and then they'll disappear. So, but if you've got a real drouthy location and nutrient deficit kind of place, bayberry is a great plant to have it. So it just depends on what you want to grow and what you have for your soils. But there are different things that go there. We've also gone into the tea and tincture pack for people that are interested. There seems to be some real popularity of the herbs that way. And we have the culinary pack. So with that, basically, that's a good set for somebody who wants to do for the kitchen and wants to do a lot more fresh herbs. That's a nice pack for you, and those are grown locally. Let's see, the ground cover pack, that is a perennial pack with the different types of thyme and things. Those are very easy to put around a trail area, so you don't have to mow right up close to things. If you have those in there, you're not having to fuss with the edges much with property, or you can use them in a rock garden, and they work very well there. The Pachysandra, that's a really, a lot of people use that in the understory. It's very formal looking, and so for somebody who wants a very formal look, but they have trees, like in part of the country, we have a lot of trees, that shady locations, they do really great there. In fact, we have one order that already came in, somebody's planting 300. I didn't check to see whether it was the guy that ordered 800 last year. 800 plants. Pachysandra. So he wanted a very formal looking, under everything kind of. I would have been tired of Pachysandra. So, but it's really your preference. If you're into, we have the butterfly and hummingbird back this year. I don't believe we had one last year. I have some people that order it every year because we do different things, and they just add to it. And so they've gotten quite a bit of that. And there's a lot of interest in the pollinators, and I have some information here for people on pollinators. We've had so many problems with their bees, and there's a lot of concern about that, and the fact that if you don't have bees and you don't have pollinators, you don't have apples, you don't have fruits, you don't have a lot of things. So unless you want to go out with a Q-tip and pollinate all your stuff. So I just handed this out. They are looking for places to do test plots and things. And
How do you get to be a test plot person?
the NRCS person, Don Kierstead over there, you can call me or give me the information. I brought a form here that just says if you want to involve with certain programs, let me know. I have that, and I'll take that back and let everybody know who wants been contacted. So if you're interested in that, you can fill out your name and say pollinators, and then I'll know to get it to the right person to call you. But I think it's really important. They're still not sure, at least as far as I can see, why we're losing her. There seems to be a whole bunch of different ideas and there's different things that are causing stress to the bees and others. So we really need to look at our other pollinators, but also hopefully help out our pollinators and make their life less stressful as far as survival.
I saw more bees last year than in previous years. I saw more bees around
So I
last
saw a lot of different kinds of bees.
year. Yeah, more bumblebees last
But I understand that a lot of the honey producers had a horrible year last year. There was a lot of hives lost last year. So,
From what I read, it was too hot and too dry in this area for the bees. But it was my first year too.
but we had these extremes, and we're going to see more of these extremes, they say, weather, where you were going to have a whole period of really hot, and then we're going to have, we don't have anything like baby rain anymore. You know, the nice sprinkles have gone. We either seem to have these big dumps or nothing. So that's why also we put on there, and I was amazed a couple years ago that people didn't even know what the rain barrels were. And so we have those again on the list in the compost bins. And rain barrels are a great way to collect the water from where you have, use it right there. We were trying to get, and something happened with the people when I was trying to locate some pasture pumps and stuff like that that were inexpensive, and we're still working on coming up with something that were solar, because trying to set up different things. But a rain barrel is an ideal way to handle that. Also rain gardens, there's been a lot of interest in those, and they're very logical. With the more and more pavement, which is a big problem, the impervious surface we're causing in this part of the country. We went right by the 10% impervious surface in our towns here, and especially in the cities in Stratford County. That is where the critical mass is, where you really start seeing effect. And it seems like the longer we're around, the more land we need to cover up for each individual. So we have more individuals, and we're covering more per person. So we have to be more creative as to how we get our water down into the ground so that we have it in our wells, so that we can use it, turn it around, and cycle it back through. So rain gardens are a fun way to improve your property and use that wetland rather than trying to cover it up. Say, oh, that's a nice little area. You know, it's wet. It's already wet. Let's take some pretty flowers. Let's take some shrubs. Let's beautify it. Let's not flatten it out and think it's going to go away, because it's an important part of what we have there. So, and you can beautify a lot of parking lots and stuff. And if you have flowers and shrubs in an area, people tend to not walk on it, because you can make a soil surface, a grass lawn, impervious to the water too. The more you compact it, some people don't realize, the more you walk over it, the more it compresses it. And that's what a lot of farmers have found too. Over the years, if they've done that to their soil, they've depleted it. And that's one of the things in the Cornell Soils Information Book, which is one of the things on the list, talks about complete soil test that's done on property that actually goes into looking at, you know, whether you can get the water down through the soil, whether the roots, if the water can't get down, you've got a perched surface there that holds that heavy water. When it rains in there, it drowns out the roots and it will kill the plant too. And it wasn't because of a plow that went through in a certain way and how they did it. So they do these, this is a complete way to look at testing and how to make your soil better again. But it's not something you can just put on some fertilizer and it will be all better. It's a long-term kind of improvement to your property. into your soil. It's adding organic matter back in. It may be tilling down lower to break up that solid impervious surface that's been put down there underneath with clay, compact it, and improve it. So if anybody's interested in these books, I have some here available today. I can sell them to you today, or you can just order them. I also have the Building Soils for Better Crops, and even in small lots, that's a crop if you're starting to grow your own food there. And I also have, particularly small places, the fresh food for small spaces, including in containers, and so it talks about growing mushrooms and all sorts of creative things. So, you know, you grow on a deck, and I used to do that in the apartment I was living in at one time. And it takes a lot of different kind of skill to grow out of a pot than in the ground. So you really have to learn how you do that and how you keep it watered and how you manage that. But you can successfully grow a bunch of your food that way if that's what you like to do. So they're not calling them victory gardens. What are they calling them now if you grow your own in a small lot? And I also brought to you invasive species of the state identification book. Does anybody want one of those? Yeah, you've got one of those. This is quite good for IDing them. It also has some more explanations about. Very handy. The thing about invasive species is very seductive. Because you go out and look at a piece of property, and this person says, I'm doing pretty good. You just have one or two plants out here, so I really don't need to worry about it. And then there's Odeon Point, which it's easier to just cut the whole thing down because there's more invasive species than there are native species there. Invasives on the list. The reality is when there's only one or two, it's easy to get rid of them. But if you're out there trying to take out a patch where there's, you know, hundreds and hundreds of them, the job is massive. But when there's only a couple, you don't worry about it. Until it gets to be the problem where it really is a problem. So you have to decide, procrastination, doesn't matter to me. We can all argue about which ones they put on the list and whether they should be there or not. You know, I've been around lots of discussions about that.
You familiar with sweet fern?
Sweet fern?
It's a deciduous shrub. Has leaves like a fern. And it's kind of like a sweet smell to it. So it spreads like crazy. I don't know if
I've
that's
heard the name and my mind isn't.
I have a abandoned gravel pit behind my property. When I first moved there, it was like nothing.
Right.
Now it sounds like a carpet, and it's pushed up the side, and it spreads like crazy. So I don't know if that's future, that maybe.
It could be. The thing with invasive species is that they love places where somebody has gone in and dug up. So ideal locations for invasive species are gravel pits, where somebody's put a house in and then not paid attention, a field that somebody's tilled and then stops tilling and walks away from. Any of those kind of places where you've scarred the surface. A logging operation is an ideal location for invasives to then say, the other one is along roadsides. You know how in the fall they tend to go, oh my gosh, we need to dig out the ditch of all the sand we put in there last year. Unfortunately, they just go through and dig it out and then leave it that way. And then what was an invasive species partway up the road there when they mowed them down, those branches got down into there, or the seeds got down in there, and then they have a brand new crop of Japanese knotweed is the perfect one where you see where there's been one patch along the side of the road, and pretty soon for the next mile, you see little patches all along. And then pretty soon you have this beautiful screen of what looks like bamboo all the way down. It travels very quickly. And that's what happens with the invasive species is that they usually have a lot of berries on them. when I got involved with doing the wild turkey packet, Wild Turkey Federation wanted to plant certain things that was before the invasive species list, but I had some people on my board that were very concerned about this march of certain plants and said, we're going to do the program, we're not going to have those in the packet. And we had some big discussions. And I'm glad that the board stuck to their guns on that because we didn't put those into the package, and I'm happy to say we didn't do that. But the reason why is they hold the fruit on into winter, the birds will pick them up, the birds will take them and spread them, and so that's how they get spread out. Well, if you're getting all these packets of things out into the wild, out into the far reaches where people just plant them and hope they spread, well, hoping they spread is not what you want with invasive species. So. Some of the invasive species have lots of berries, but they don't have the good food value of some of the native ones. So, like the purple loosestrife, which is beautiful. It garnishes the sides of our roads. I love purple, but it's not a real good food value for the birds. So it's replacing a lot of the native species in where it's taking over. And it was sold as 30-some different names in nurseries. And the reason the nurseries and the floral shops sold it was really quick and easy to grow, and somebody wouldn't come back to you and say, it died. But people were paying for them and planting them out, and that's how they got spread out so easily. So, anybody have any questions for me? Because I can just keep babbling about different things. If you have a particular subject you want to ask me about, I'll see if my brain will.
Those packages there, I think it was the house. It's in 4-inch pots.
Yes.
Does each variety come in?
A different 4-inch pot, so each one has its own 4-inch pot.
One plant or
one plant.
Or half a dozen plants?
No, one plant will be in each pot. You mean of the herbs?
Yeah.
No, those are bigger. Now you've ordered from where the hummingbird packs in the past. We've had some really tiny plants in there. These, when we've got a local grower growing in the forest, and these are in larger pots, and so.
How was the gooseberries this year?
The gooseberries?
Because
these are supposed to be bigger ones than the ones
yeah,
that you got. You got some really tiny
little small ones that Stephanie thought were weeds. She plucked about twice and I was spoiling them. I got them back in again and they survived.
I was very diligent in my weeding. I had a chicken that would follow me and try to weed behind me. It was watching what I was picking out. It was really funny. Oh. If you don't have chickens, you just don't understand how wonderful.
I love chickens. I love chickens.
Oh, we're all chicken lovers.
Awesome.
Actually, I accidentally was down in the coop with my son today, and I left him, and I shouldn't be admitting it, to finish up, and went up to the house, and he didn't turn up, and I went down, and I said, Sean, and he yelled at me, and I heard the roosters crowing with him, and I went down, what's going on, Sean? Did you lock me in? Oops. Oh well.
At least you went back.
At least I didn't leave for work and leave him. Well, I was supposed to take him to work, but at least I didn't forget.
My next question is, what's your prediction for survival of the blackcurrants and the gooseberries with all this really deep snow and hard winter?
I wouldn't think that's a problem. They're used to that, and they're supposed to survive in this part of the country, so I would assume they do well.
The blackcurrant?
You know, this kind of snow is actually easier on, I'll preface that with something else. It's really good because it protects them and it doesn't get down as cold when you have this much cover on it. The only problem you have is the rodents do very well in this stuff too. So the predators like the hawks and owls aren't getting their food because they can't get to them. So you will find a lot of things girdled because they're underneath, they're living great down by the ground because it's actually warmer down there than up above. And they've built themselves wonderful tunnels and things, and unfortunately they will cut off and girdle a lot of things in this kind of weather.
So that last year was
But so that in the summer, carrots came up,
Yeah.
and the mice were down in the roots, and the cats used to sit among the carrots and watch the tops waving.
This winter in the fall, I noticed the mice were trying to get in the house something fierce this fall. Everybody was talking about it. There was lots of mice out there, and they were all trying to get in the house, and people were complaining about
You
mice.
mean they knew?
What?
They knew?
They knew it was going to be a rough. Well, actually, for them, it wasn't rough. Once they got their house set up underneath there, they were pretty protected. Although I saw some small hawk pick up a mouse that must have been trying to cross the road because it was right out in front of my place, and it picked up a little mouse. I said, gee, maybe I'll throw out the rest that are in the house. Come and get it. Any other questions?
Any suggestions how to get rid of this Oriental bittersweet?
The Oriental bittersweet,
Get that growing in the woods, and it's
that's a real problem.
Oh,
And,
true.
and the problem is with the native bittersweet, people can't tell the difference, it's really hard. The Oriental bittersweet, the battles that people have had with it are that you need to cut it off right at the base and continue to cut it off. The people that have success in actually getting rid of it deal with the injection into the stem. So they're point injecting it. So they're cutting it off and then injecting it right when they do it. That seems to be the most successful
what are
getting rid of
they, what are they
bittersweet.
injecting it with?
I don't know the pesticide, I'm not up on that, so even if I did, I wouldn't tell you because you need to talk to somebody that's professional in that. But
It's nasty stuff, it really takes over.
it really does, and if you let it climb the tree, it will strangle. I've seen it strangle
Oh, yeah.
even pine trees, where it goes up and it just basically tucks over the top. It's the eastern kudzu. And there's some talk that it has actually mixed with the local native so that you can't, that's why it's really difficult, they feel, and some of them is actually a hybrid of the two. But the Oriental one definitely is aggressive. And people put them on their doors, they're such a pretty. Actually, it's illegal to do that right now. It's an invasive, and so if you cut it and transport it and hang it up somewhere, that's actually is not allowed within the law. If you have it on your property and you don't remove it, that's legal. The neighbors may come in at night and try and remove it for you because they don't want to take over. But you're not required to remove it, but if you transport it somewhere where it can get released there, then you're in trouble.
But you're saying there's a native species?
There's a
Does it have the
native-
pretty little orange berries on it?
It looks a lot the same. I really couldn't sit there and look at the two. One has only berries at the end, and one has berries all the way down, they say. But now they say that they're kind of niche.
There's a house here in town that's got it across its front porch, as you're headed up back towards Route 11 on the left-hand side. And it's beautiful in the fall. So she's got it going all the way across the front porch. Really? Very pretty.
Other options.
It's true, but it's very pretty.
But I have cut bittersweet off at the ground, and I'll cut off 5 feet worth, and I will come back a month later, and I will cut off 5 feet worth again, and I'll come back later, a month later, another 5 feet. So that sucker grows, and it's very persistent.
Where did it come from originally? Any idea?
It's from the Orient. It was imported. Probably because it grew faster. I hate to tell you, but the multiflora rose was actually designed to be a hedgerow thing by my my federal partners, the Natural Resource Conservation Service, to be used between fields to keep cows on this side and cows on this side. And actually they designed it and liked it because it was very aggressive, but they forgot the other end of being aggressive meant that it might get away. Aggressive side is great because it's easy for anybody to plant it and grow it, but unfortunately the other side of that is you can't stop it. So,
What did you say that plant was?
multiflora rose, and it's in that book. So, not on the order form.
I've got a mathematical question.
Okay.
Blueberries.
Yeah.
If you dig a $5 hole for a $1 plant, what size of hole do you dig for an $8 plant?
A little bit bigger one. Can I come watch and take pictures of you doing something?
What?
Those other blueberries.
Just roughly speaking, how have you got a blueberry cover?
If you're putting in a blueberry bush, in a container is.
Because we did 3 or 4 that never succeeded, you know?
But I thought you said that ground was.
You look at the different types of ground, and if you notice also, I have ordered a different kind on there,
I saw that likes dry soils.
that like dry soils and hillsides, and so.
Very small berries.
And they're small berries.
Yeah, that's okay.
Well, I personally like the smaller ones because they taste a lot stronger. You know, if you go up on the hillside and rake, and I've been up to Milton to Steve Kenish's property and had the privilege to, sorry about that, the privilege to learn to rake blueberries. And if you haven't ever done that, that is quite an experience because you actually use this little back holes rake, and it's a lot quicker than trying to hand pick the berries. And you can get a lot of berries in a very short time using a rake. But it's a great experience. And those little berries have a lot more flavor than the big ones. The big ones you can fill a container very quickly, but I find them they don't have as much flavor in them. But that's my preference. I prefer the little guys for my.
And what height will the bush go to?
Those, I believe they are very short. The hillside ones. Now the wild ones, which I'm ordering for somebody, you know, there's some real. They don't get any higher than this. But I think the hillside ones. What does it say on there? It's like 2 feet or something like that.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I
Really
mean,
good.
it says in here that they get to. Oh, where did I go? 2 to 4 feet. 2 to 4 feet. So that's as high as they get.
The other ones you were talking about, the short ones.
Yeah, those are the wild ones.
Are they on the order form this year?
I don't believe we have those on the order form, but the town of Lee asked me to order some, so I'm going to order enough for them, and of course, when I order, I'll be ordering, so there'll be some there available for sale.
Native, is that what you call them?
Right. Okay. They wanted particularly the native one, so that's what I'm ordering for them.
You said like the kind that grow on top of Blue Joe.
Yeah, yes.
Those are good.
So, it's interesting, those wild ones, there's a lot of varieties of those, because some places, they're growing particular, you know, those wild ones, so there is hybrids of the wild ones too, that grow more of them, or denser, or come earlier, or come all at the same time, because if you're growing them for market, when they come due all the time, it's not good for you if you're trying to go through and rake a field. And usually when they rake, they'll do one area and they don't really go back to that area. So they rake right through.
See the shallots and.
One of the other districts was doing that, and so I brought them on. What?
Suppose I wanted to get 5 pounds, would I have to get 5 pounds of each? Or can you mix them up and get 2.5 pounds of each?
You need 5 pounds of each. I was trying to think whether I could do that to my volunteers. Decided I wouldn't. We try to accommodate people a lot with the district, because part of the program is to get that information out and make them available to people at a really reasonable price, so that they can get those plants and grow them and get plants that a lot of the natives and stuff are very hard to find even from the nurseries and stuff. So we focus on doing that and making them available.
I know with the gooseberries and the black currants, but you have to have that special permission.
Yeah,
You have to send off to Oregon or something like that.
and they won't sell
And they won't
them.
send them unless
Right.
you've gone to the Department of Agriculture first.
Right,
So it's a, it's a catch-22.
right, so we have special permission to do this. And the other thing that's on there is the hemlock. And the woolly adelgida, there's a problem with that. In fact, the state guy calls me up and said, Betty, where are you getting your? And I said, I'm getting them from the state nursery. So they're actually coming from within the state to make them available to you. Just because of that fact that we're trying, we're hoping, and they had one outbreak, I think, in the state where some got in somewhere and they had to take out a bunch of trees and deal with that. But we're hoping that this doesn't become a problem here. But I've had so many requests, and I try and accommodate people when they send in information. I say that on that, let me know if you're looking for something. Because I try to accommodate what people are looking for. Gee, I never thought of that one, let me look into that. So the order form changes every year a little bit. Some of the things are on there. It's like I'll do the Japanese plums one year, and I'll do the American plums, the other ones. Some years I'll have apricots on there, some years I have nectarines on there, some years I don't.
And you didn't put your tomatillas on there.
They're not on there, but we will have tomatillas. They're being grown for us this year.
So
So
we can't order them. So
can't order, you have to pick them up. There.
Have you tried that?
No.
Describe them.
They're like a tomato, except they're encased in a pretty lacy package husk around them. And the thing is, I had them at the Rochester Fair for people to try them, and 99% of the people went, oh, these are great. They're little tiny ones. You can also have the big ones that are used for salsa, but these little tiny ones, you grab a handful of them and put them in your pocket, and you use them to
That's
eat,
like a
and
fruit
they're
version of
sweet.
M&M's.
Yes, they're
What do you call them?
tomatillas, and they also call them
No, just it husk off and it's the internal.
right, ground cherries. They're also called that, and but they're very sweet. But like I said, once in a while we hit somebody at the fair about less than 5%. Didn't like them. But 95% of them would come back and want to have more. And go, no, we got to have enough for everybody. So, and the plant is really easy to grow, and they last. So you can pick them. And in fact, I have some hung in my basement right now, and I'm still picking off the berries off of it.
We grew them one year, but we planted them too late. And the time it got to the fall, they were just beginning to ripen.
Right.
And it was no good.
But they do last. They're very good as far as lasting. And you're starting to see the tomatillas, the larger ones, in the markets now available for sale. And they have this pretty husk around. But the neat thing about it is that keeps it clean, on the inside. So I just pop them out and eat them. But they're addictive. I warn you, they are addictive.
Yes, right?
Yes, it is. And
Amen.
kids love them. They're coming through there too at the fair. They're a great, snack for kids and getting them involved in this garden.
You know how to spell?
Tomatillo.
The other thing we have at the plant sale that has become quite popular is we have the tomatoes in the big container. And that are either starting to have tomatoes on or flowers are done. So you'll have the first tomatoes in the neighborhood, which is always a good thing. So, but a big tomato plant that's been growing on, so if you want to keep it inside and grow it. We're also
But it's
gonna
slow to
have-
ripen last year.
They were?
Yeah,
Well-
but they've had a great crop,
Oh,
isn't it?
my gosh, we have the best tomatoes. I mean, I'm sure everybody did last year.
The other sun gold tomatoes that we will have there, I always have them grow those for us because those are some of the best cherry tomatoes, the flavor, they're a golden color and they're delicious.
Do they split? Are there any that don't split?
Don't split.
Cherry tomatoes.
And the problem with that is when you get a rain, the heavy water just splits a lot of tomatoes in it. We also will have a lot more perennials available that day of the sale, so we have that. We have a lot of people, as John knows, waiting at the door to get in. Lined up. This year we're going to have a bunch of workshops as well, and we'll publicize when they are, so if people want to come, some of the other districts have done this other years, so we're going to have one on pruning, we're going to have one on planting for wildlife. so winter type planting and things like that. We're going to have one on pollinators. We're going to have one on small fruits, I believe, too. So
The Extension Service did a workshop this week, but it was on a Tuesday morning.
Right.
And it sounded real interesting. I mean, I don't know
they
if you
have
make it.
some really great ones, but
I don't know if you can get them to repeat that one.
right. Okay. Well, I'll ask him. Was it Jeffrey that was doing it, or
I think so, yeah.
Okay, I'll ask him what he was doing this week and find out. We thought we would do just have a series of them, and people know about them ahead of time, and then they can just choose to come to pick up their plants based on that, or make it more of a day type thing, so that we'll have those on Friday and then Saturday.
Should have served lunch too. A little lunch, please.
But I was trying to think what other things. Oh, another thing we have on the sign there, this was due to a request. We have these available so you can see what they are. They're just for motorized vehicles. Some people have problems on their property, and it's just a reminder to people that are ripping up their trails and stuff that they really don't want to have the motorized vehicles. They'll accept other kinds. So those are available as well. Any other questions? Of course, they've got all the other things going on in the district, but that this program helps fund, and hopefully the county.
Have you heard anything about your funding?
Thursday is when the county executive committee, we're still zeroed out the budget, so I may not be there. Okay. So this may be your last plant sale, depending on what goes on. So, and then on the 19th of March will be the final decision by the legislators as to whether to accept the county's budget or to add money in or take more money out. And that's definitely a question what they're going to do. So, but we'll see. Any other questions? Yeah, we're always looking for volunteers too. You notice down at the bottom of the auditorium we have that box there. We have some people that have helped us for years. In fact, Dottie probably was one of the first years she started helping me with that. We have several that have started back then. They had done the plant sale one more year than me, and they had 20 orders, I think, the first year before I was there. Then I took over, and it was in the trail room downstairs, and they took an hour and they packed plants. Now, the 2 weeks before the plant sale, we have a lot of preparation, and we package plants, and you'll learn about the plants, and it's a lot of fun. People come and help, sign up for 2 hours, sign up for a whole day. We have some people that come a bunch of days. We have some people that just come for certain periods of it. We try to accommodate everybody. We encourage children, as long as the parents are there with them, to help out, because it's a good family event to learn how to do those things. And we need to have the children involved with them. So we really encourage that. We've also had people with oxygen bottles in the past. We've had people that have back problems. We have people that were on Alzheimer's, so they have that. But we accommodated how they, their limitations, and we enjoy having the diversity. So if you would like to come help, we can always use it. So, there's the good. Order lots. Get them in. If you want me to take it with me today, I can do that. If you, I fill the orders in the order in which I received them. We already have over 100 orders in, so.